Snowfall totals are increasing, Arctic air is coming, and then, well, you gotta walk through the fire before you win the prize. Welcome into the channel, friends. Jason is my name, been tracking weather for a long time. It is Saturday, November the 8th. We're going to track weather one more day at least, and I'm glad you're here with me, folks. Our first big winter weather event is upon us, and it is a dynamic system bringing a lot of cold air, and we're going to take a look at who's going to see the cold and who's going to see the snow and how much is going to pile up and how long it's going to stick around. We'll take a look at all of that. We're going to start here with the satellite image in today's video. Fall is a fascinating time of year. It can either be a dud or it can be dynamic, and this year it looks like it's choosing the dynamic route, and we certainly have a big weather system on the doorstep. It's already bringing some snow and rain to parts of the northern plains, and it's going to affect much more of the country than that too as we go on through the next couple of days into the early part of next week. I'm going to start here by taking a look at the satellite image, and you can see there's a big piece of spin coming in up here through the Dakotas. This is our system that is dropping in. It's going to push south this way, bringing a surge of Arctic air out ahead of it. There's another little system working through parts of the Midwest, bringing some snow and some clouds and some rain out there. And look at this. You see all of these clouds back in this area that just don't appear to be moving? Well, that is fog. It is foggy out my window here in western North Carolina this morning, and there's plenty more where that came from back here in the Tennessee Valley and the Deep South. And I'm going to show you the weather-wise app here, and there's your dense fog advisories. They were extending a much further area of real estate than this. This is the kind of the grayish color that's, you can see that in Tennessee pretty well, and that some of those have been dropped, but a lot of fog out there this morning. These are special weather statements, and then some wind warnings out here in South Dakota. Everybody else looking pretty good as far as the alerts map goes. But here's what we're going to do first. We're going to take a look at the big picture, then we're going to drill into this big trough and weather system that's coming in, and kind of take a look at some of the specifics around that. Here's the big picture. If we go through this afternoon, this is this morning, head on through this afternoon, and you can see this little area of low pressure diving in to the mid-Mississippi Valley eventually, and it's bringing some rain into Iowa and around there, some snow on the backside, potentially an inch or so here in Iowa as we get on through the afternoon, and some thunderstorms ahead of a little low pressure system. There's a cold front that's extending back into the Carolinas, and it's going to work back north with southerly winds as a warm front. And when that happens, little piece of energy down here spawns a very weak surface low, and we'll see some thunderstorms and a potential for a couple of reports of severe weather. I had a couple of wind reports in Tennessee yesterday, I think a hail report too, but not looking at a widespread event. But don't be surprised if you see some large hail, even a quick brief spin up, land spout, tornado or two, something like that, looking to be in the realm of possibility. But that'll be the case as we get on through the afternoon and evening hours tonight. As we head on through the overnight hours, that initial low that's bringing that cold front through will move through the Ohio Valley tomorrow. As we head toward the morning hours, it'll be raining up here in Indiana and Ohio and parts of the Great Lakes, and then more showers and drizzle through the lower Appalachians. And then that system moves into the northeast by the time we get to Sunday afternoon and starts to wind up a little bit there. And boy, here comes the big 1040 high pressure just blasting Arctic air down, and you can see this circle here. This is a wave in the mid levels of the atmosphere, a strong vorticity maximum that's going to slide to the south and rush in and bring dynamic lift to the atmosphere and create some snow in the southern Appalachians and through parts of the Ohio Valley as well. And that's kind of what's going on here as from a synoptic setup. But you can see those blue lines working in through Sunday evening. That's when the cold front will be blasting into the east, bringing some wind and cool weather, and we'll look at that in a minute. And here we go on into Monday. The cold air advection is well underway. That high pressure just slams down into the Gulf Coast and brings all of the northerly winds on the east side of it. And you can see the lake effect snow machine kicking into gear. That initial low pressure is working through the northeast. Still going to be rainy through the day on Monday. And snow showers are going to be flying here, maybe even into the Piedmont of North Carolina. The Euro is still insistent on that. And then more snow back in West Virginia as we go into Monday night in the overnight hours. Here's what the temperatures are going to look like in terms of timing. So this morning, very, very cold air entering the northern plains and the Great Lakes, and that will just slide south through the weekend as we get on in towards Sunday morning. You can see the leading edge of that cold air working from Texas all the way up in toward western Lake Ontario, and it just begins to penetrate into the southeast through the day on Sunday into the overnight hours. That cold air advection will just be coming in and really setting the stage for some good snows here in the southern Appalachians. We could see 2, 3, 4 inches of snow in some spots out here and up in the Ohio Valley as well. The lake effect snow machine will be kicking into gear. Look at those anomalies as we get on into the overnight hours, Monday night into Tuesday morning. Going to see plenty of areas in the south below freezing. Even the northern part of Florida could get below freezing as well. You guys are going to be very chilly for this time of year down in Florida. Much, much warmer out west. Backside of that high, that return flow is going to be cranking those southerly winds. You guys are going to be warming up out there while we're cooling off here in the east, and then that moves on through Tuesday into Wednesday and so forth. And so that's what happens as we go on out through time. Now we're going to take a look here at the specifics in terms of the timing of the snow, rain, and how much snow we're going to expect to see fall coming right up. All right, got a few maps to show you here with this system, including snowfall maps, mid-level vorticity, and temperature maps. And we're going to focus mostly on the east here in this segment. Really not much going on out west. It's going to be dry. You got a big ridge going up out there on the west coast, kind of shutting off that big Pacific jet that's been slamming into the coast, bringing all that rain, and it's going to warm up out there, and you're going to be 5 to 10 to 15 degrees above normal for much of the west. But here back in the east, we've got all of the weather, and we're hogging all of the activity as we go through the weekend. So you can see this afternoon rain and potentially snow on the backside moving through Iowa, heading in toward Illinois as we get into the overnight hours. And look over here in the east. This afternoon and toward the evening hours, thunderstorms popping up through South Carolina. Had some thunderstorms in western North Carolina last night. Went to bed with a big thunderstorm, and there it is. Woke up to fog, and it is raining through the Piedmont of North Carolina. Could see an inch or two of rain where these thunderstorms train over each other, but definitely many areas are going to pick up a half an inch of rain. You can see that thunderstorm activity is very cellular in nature. We've got some shear, not a lot of instability, and not a lot of low-level instability, or we'd have more of a tornado threat. But in any event, have some shear, could organize a few of these supercells and produce some hail. A couple of wind reports not out of the question either, and then some snow moving into the northeast by the time we get into tomorrow morning. Southeast kind of dries out a bit, but look at this. More energy coming in as the energy flows in from the north. We're going to see that snow machine kind of crank up here as we go through the evening hours on Sunday night. Look at this. Snow coming in from Kentucky back into the center of Indiana and up here in the Great Lakes. We get off the east coast here of Lake Michigan and then over eastern Lake Ontario and Erie and then Ontario. Going to see plenty of snowfall come out of that as we go on through the overnight hours Sunday night, and we wake up Monday morning. More showers and thunderstorms. Could see a bit of a severe weather event here in the eastern sections of North Carolina, although it would be marginal, probably isolated severe, and then more energy continuing to come in and reinvigorate the base of that trough. And there is your Appalachian northerly flow snow event just kicking into high gear. So it's going to be kind of a prolonged snow event, a couple of days worth of snow. It's not going to be extremely, extremely heavy, but it will pile up maybe to the tune of 2 to 4 to 6 inches in some spots. But this is the rapid refresh, by the way. Not showing a lot of snowfall east of the Alps until you get up here into the northeast. And we still see that snow cranking on through the overnight hours, Monday night in toward Tuesday morning. So quite a bit of snow is going to fall. And here's what our snowfall totals look like from that model. So a couple of spots down here you get on in toward this these red colors are getting up into the 9-10 inch range, probably a little bit robust, but anywhere from 1 to 2 to 4 inches, maybe even approaching 6 inches in spots in some of these higher peaks is not out of the question. Certainly lake effect snows are going to be higher in spots, and you know how lake effect snows are. They're kind of fickle, and where they line up, that's where you get the biggest snow total. So you get these narrow bands of snow, and either side of those you're not seeing a whole lot, but definitely could see plenty of flakes in the air from Iowa to northern Illinois, back through most of Indiana and Ohio into western Pennsylvania, down into Kentucky, Virginia, and then the western portions of Virginia, North Carolina, and then of course West Virginia and on up into the northeast too. Could see some snow. And here is what the European shows. European is actually one of the only models continuing to show snowfall east of the Alps, and you can see a good bit of snow shower activity out here in North Carolina and over into Virginia as well, because it keeps the vorticity, the energy that's creating all of this, by the time we get into overnight Monday, it's creating a big pocket of energy that's consolidated and very, very strong. And I'll show you how strong it is, but that's the European solution. And again, plenty of snow in the same areas that we looked at on the rapid refresh. Here's the NAM. Boy, this just has snow for everybody all up in here, even snow out in southern Missouri and back into northern Alabama. The NAM is just snow for everybody. This thing ought to be give us a courtesy flush with all the stuff that it puts out. So this will back off, I'm sure, but a big pocket of snow here in Wisconsin and up here as well as we get on into Canada. But interesting solution from the NAM. Everybody deserves a good NAMing every now and then. It's such a wowzer. Anyway, let's go to something that's more reliable than the NAM. And here is the European. All right, so the European comes in, and this snowfall will begin here in the southern Appalachians. And I'm kind of zooming in on North Carolina just to show you what happens east of the Alps into West Virginia and to Virginia in the mountains. And you see that pick up overnight Monday. And look what happens as we get on into Monday morning. That snow is just really coming down in the higher peaks of the Appalachians out here. And look what happens as we get toward Monday afternoon. Snow breaking containment over here in South Carolina near Charlotte. It's got about a half an inch of snow in Charlotte. Don't get too excited, Charlotte. The European's the only one showing this, and probably you're not going to see a half an inch accumulate. The ground temperatures are warm, but it would be pretty if it's falling in the out of the sky, of course. And there is Burlington picking up 1.4 inches according to the Euro. Again, don't focus on the totals, just where you see these gray dots. That's where you could see a few snow showers if the European is right. None of the none of the other models are showing this, and so I'm not all enthused. I'm still skeptical of this solution. Could see a flurry or two in some spots, probably the best case scenario, but all of these, half an inch snowfall amounts into the coastal plain. And what is this over here over the Pamlico Sound? 3 inches? No, I don't think so, Euro. Good try though. All right, so that's what the European is showing, but definitely could see a few spots up here in the Appalachians pick up 2 to 4 inches of snow, maybe even 6 in spots. Here's the National Weather Service map. This is kind of interesting because this is the high end. They put out a low end, what's expected, and then a high end. And sometimes it's just fun to look at the high-end stuff, and I think if everything came together this right, you took a boat out over Lake Michigan, you might see 20 inches of snow. Okay, well, that's the high-end scenario, but a lot of these areas could pick up 6 to 8 inches of snow, according to the National Weather Service, if everything came together just right. Most likely, these things would be cut well below these totals, but interesting and fun to look at, and sometimes I like to show fun maps just because. And here is the trough itself. It is getting cranked up Sunday afternoon. The leading edge of it is coming in. You can see those southerly winds out ahead of this. Warm temperatures are expected here in the Piedmont tomorrow, but look what happens with this big max up here. That's what this is. This is that vorticity maximum, and the European is the best model in terms of its depiction of the atmosphere most of the time, in terms of being a global model. And it is showing the strongest solution with this. Look at this thing, is just blasts in Sunday night into Monday morning. We get that cold front working in, and cold air advection begins. Some areas are not going to get out of the 40s here in Western Carolina. It's certainly going to be colder than that up here in the Midwest, with temperatures not getting out of the 30s. But look at that big wound up tight red system as it comes in through the southern Appalachians, takes the perfect track to give snow showers to the Piedmont of North Carolina and Virginia, should this occur. Now, this is still, 2 to 3 days out, so this could adjust a bit, and then it swings on through the overnight hours, Monday night into Tuesday morning. It's exiting the coast. There's the base of the trough heading out, and so that is what is causing all of the lift to create the snow showers. There's not a lot of moisture to work with, but should this system play out the way the European is depicting, it will wring that moisture out with the greatest efficiency. And look at this purple. This shows you this sort of the standard deviation, or how anomalously deep this trough is. We're getting toward 5 standard deviations. So this is not a pretty, but a very rare event in terms of the deepness of this trough. It is very, very deep and very, very anomalous. And so that is what we're looking at. As far as winds goes, we get into Sunday morning. Here's the winds, plenty of wind gusts. This is a gust map, plenty of winds back to the west, and that front will rush through, bring some gusty winds through the overnight hours. Sunday night, we get on in toward Monday morning. Look at this. The winds kind of back off through the overnight hours Sunday night. This is Sunday night, kind of approaching midnight. Backs off just a little bit, but the second surge of that front comes in Monday morning. We start to get some mixing. Gusts pick up. We got gusts in the 30s for portions of the deep south, 20s for everybody else. and maybe these are a bit high, but still it's going to be kind of a gusty and blustery Monday. And then that last piece of energy, that big consolidated piece of energy, swings through, keeps the winds going through the nighttime hours. Otherwise, we'd crash those temps into the 20s. For many areas, we'll get down to 30s and get into the, get below freezing, but we won't crash into the low 20s or mid 20s. We're looking at maybe upper 20s to around freezing in some areas, but it would be colder than that if the winds were to stay up or die down, and they don't. They stay up until we get into Tuesday, and then things will eventually calm down from there. Here's your temperatures as we take a look at the last little section here. Sunday afternoon, we're already advanced towards Sunday afternoon in the evening. You can see that front. The temperatures will come through out ahead of it. Plenty of 70s here, 60s and 70s across the southeast into Florida. And then that front will blast through, and we'll start to see those temperatures crash overnight Sunday night, get down into the 40s for lows, 30s back here in toward the Appalachians. The front hasn't quite made it through the Northeast yet, but 20s. Look at these lows back in the Northern Plains, Midwest, Great Lakes, getting down into the 20s. It's going to be freezing cold for you guys. And as we head through the day Monday, get on in toward the afternoon, looking at highs in the 40s. These are wintertime high temperatures, my friends. And out ahead of that, back toward the east is what I mean to say, and toward the south, we're not going to quite cool down all that much. We still have one more punch of cold to come through, and that'll be the impetus for highs in the 40s for farther east as we get on into Tuesday. But here's the overnight lows as we get toward Monday night. Temperatures into the 30s, down to around 30, back to the 20s, even some teens showing up in the higher elevations in the Appalachians, but 20s and 30s for a good portion of the Midwest, Mississippi Valley, Tennessee Valley, Ohio Valley. East of the Apps, the winds stay up and get a little downsloping here, and it keeps us out of the deep freeze for parts of the Piedmont, but still could see some freezing temperatures as far south as the panhandle of Florida if things come together just right. And then we warm up on Tuesday afternoon all the way into the 40s as we get on in toward Tuesday afternoon and approach the evening hours here in the Piedmont of North Carolina and South Carolina. Again, this is January temperatures, folks. These are highs in January, and not getting out of the 30s and 20s in parts of New England, folks. So it is very, 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 very cold air mass, and that is the dynamic system that we've got on deck. So get prepared for that. If you still have plants outside, get them inside. Look up for snow in the Piedmont sections. Monday evening into the early overnight hours. Maybe you catch a couple of flakes there, but certainly plenty of other places around the Great Lakes and then the lake effect snowbelt areas. Look for some snow, and heavy at times even in the Appalachian Mountains. So that's what we've got going on. I'm going to show you what's happening out ahead as we go on through the next couple of weeks, and we'll wrap up with that. All right, last little section here. Most modeling agrees that a pattern change will get underway after this big initial trough moves out early next week. Pattern change to what is the question? Well, here it is. Here's the European ensemble, and it has support with the GFS ensemble and generally the Canadian ensemble too. So here's that big trough early next week. We're looking at Monday, and as we get into Tuesday, everything kind of maximizes, and then we're out of the woods with the big Arctic invasion, big ridge out here on the west, more energy set to come into the Pacific Northwest. A lot of reds up here in Canada. You see this orange and red area up here? Keep your eyes on that as we run this through. This is going to go out to 2 weeks. Look what happens here. We're going to run this through the middle part of next week. Big anomaly up here in Canada. This is that trough that swung through the U.S. It sort of parks over here in northern Canada, and it's held in place by this big block up in Greenland. More energy set to come into the west with a big trough moving to the center portion of the country as we get on in toward late next week. That brings a lot of storminess back into the west with rain and warm temperatures and dry northwesterly flow for much of the eastern portion of the country. Outside of the northeast, you guys should stay locked in with some chillier than normal weather up there as we get on in toward next weekend. Then that ridge pushes into the east. Maybe you start to warm up a bit in the northeast, but look up here. We've still got reds up here that's blocking. That just continues to stay up here, and is impressive that this pattern is so persistent up here toward Greenland and up near the Arctic. But more energy coming into the west coast. We'll pump up another ridge in the east, except for the northeast. We'll see troughing continue to work through the northeast, and maybe even some wedging down into the east coast and the southeast or upper southeast, keeping us a little bit above normal, but more energy coming into the west with rain and some unsettled weather out there. And then sort of things flip. But look, as we get on out toward the end of the run, still got blocking up here in Canada. And this is a good sign. I harp on this because this helps load Canada with cool air and keeps the cool air trajectory coming in, especially when you start to see ridging back up north of Alaska. But this will keep the storm track suppressed south and help Canada build up some cold air. And again, you can start to see things kind of disperse as we get on out in time, as different members that make up the ensemble suite start to diverge. So we sort of get this flat, neutral kind of look, but even still, probably going to see above normal temperatures for parts of the east as we get on out toward November the 23rd. One more thing to show you here as far as that goes. This is the European AI. It is a artificial intelligence model, and we looked at this last winter. It did okay. Hopefully it's learned a few things, but it shows the same thing early on with that big system swinging through. A lot of blocking up here in the north. That other west coast system comes in like it's supposed to next week, ridging across the middle of the country. But look what happens as we get on out toward the end of the 2-week period. That block just builds and builds. And again, this is not an ensemble. This is an operational model, but it's been showing this pretty consistently. Big blocking up here, and look what happens. Another ridge goes up out west, sending another shot of Arctic air into the pattern for the center and eastern portion of the country. If this comes to fruition, if this is true, and it's kind of on an island, I'll admit that, and I'll tell you that. But if this is true, we could have a more fun as we get on in toward the latter portion of November in terms of snow and cold in the east. So we'll keep our eyes on that, folks. And then lastly, going to wrap up with space weather. There's the sun, some sunspots on that still going off. The coronagraph not showing a whole bunch. There's been a couple of filaments that have erupted kind of toward the north, and nothing else really from that big sunspot cluster that's now facing us that has the risk of producing an X-class solar flare, but you can see nothing going on there. We have been in solar storm conditions as some of those previous CMEs are interacting with the magnetosphere, and that could produce aurora conditions over the next couple of days. So if you're north of this red line from northern Maine to Wisconsin, Minnesota, the Great Plains, Northern Plains up into Washington State, keep your eye to the sky and to the north as you go through the next couple of days. You might catch a glimpse of those northern lights, particularly if you take a picture. The picture, it shows up in the picture better because of the way the digital camera system works. So there you have it, folks. That is the show. Thank you for joining me. We'll be back again maybe tomorrow. I've got some traveling to do tomorrow, so I'm not sure if I'll get a video out, but definitely will on Monday. And maybe I'll do a quick short with my son, Cold Drizzle, tomorrow. Thank you for your prayers. His teeth have been healing great from the extraction this past Monday. So I appreciate all those prayers and all the support for this channel. If you haven't yet subscribed, hit the subscribe button, join the team, give us a like, and certainly leave a prayer request if there's anything I can pray over for you, okay? Take care, everybody, and have a wonderful Saturday, and God bless.